You're in a meeting, and suddenly someone turns to you and says, "What do you think?" Your mind races, your heart pounds, and all you can think is, sound familiar? Welcome to Think Fast, Speak Smart. Today, we're tackling one of the most intimidating and essential communication skills: how to master on-the-spot speaking. You don't get to prepare. You don't get to write a script, but you still have to sound clear, confident, and, ideally, smart. So how do you do it? Maybe you've blanked out in a job interview, or been asked to say a few words at an event, totally unprepared. Or worse, been put on the spot in a Zoom call with 20 people waiting for your insight. Maybe you've walked away from a conversation thinking, "I wish I'd said that," or "Why couldn't I think of that in the moment?" You're not alone. Most people associate good communication with planning and scripting. But what happens when that's not an option? Here's the good news. The ability to think fast and speak smart isn't something you're born with. It's something you can build. In this episode, we're breaking it down. We'll explore why our brains freeze in high-pressure moments, why some people seem naturally quick on their feet, and most importantly, how you can get better at it. And we're not talking about vague, just be confident advice. We're going deep. You'll learn the psychology behind quick thinking, the neuroscience of spontaneous speech, and proven frameworks that you can practice and apply right away. Whether you're a natural introvert or extrovert, whether you fear the spotlight or thrive in it, this episode is for you. We'll also give you tools to reframe the fear, exercises that improve spontaneity, and real-life examples of how to turn pressure into performance. Because fear is just energy, and energy, if channeled well, becomes power. Here's a reality. In today's fast-moving world, your ability to respond in real time isn't just nice to have, it's non-negotiable. We live in a world of interviews, panels, social media clips, and impromptu brainstorms. We're expected to react fast, deliver value, and sound composed. And while this can be overwhelming, it also means there's incredible power in mastering this skill. Whether you're leading a team, interviewing for your dream role, pitching an idea, or just trying to keep up in conversation, the skill of spontaneous speaking will serve you every single day. So, get ready. This episode is going to show you not just the why, but the how. Because the truth is, everyone can learn to think fast, and anyone can learn to speak smart. By the end of this episode, you won't just understand how spontaneous speaking works. You'll have a toolkit to do it better. Let's dive into Think Fast, Speak Smart. How to master on-the-spot speaking. Section 2. Why we struggle with spontaneous speaking. Let's start with the question many of us ask. Why is it so hard to speak off the cuff? Most people assume it's about intelligence. I'm just not quick enough. But the truth is, our struggles with spontaneous speaking have less to do with smarts and more to do with how our brains handle pressure. When we're put on the spot, our brain enters what's known as a threat response. It's the same ancient survival mechanism designed to help us fight, flee, or freeze. And guess what? In modern settings, like meetings, interviews, or conversations, we tend to freeze. It starts with a spike in adrenaline. Your heart races, your breath shortens, and your mind narrows. Instead of generating ideas, your brain focuses on danger. And in that moment, the danger isn't a predator. It's embarrassment, judgment, failure. That mental freeze happens in milliseconds. The frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for logical thinking and decision-making, gets overwhelmed by emotional overload from the amygdala. You can feel the words on the tip of your tongue, but they just won't come out, and it's not just internal. External factors make it worse. Fear of judgment. One of the biggest blockers to speaking up spontaneously is the fear of being judged. We worry. What if I say something stupid? What if they think I'm not prepared? What if I ramble and lose my point? This fear hijacks our focus. Instead of thinking about what we want to say, we focus on how we'll be perceived. That tension creates silence or stammering, not clarity. The irony. The pressure we feel often makes us perform worse, which then reinforces the fear. It becomes a feedback loop. Fear leads to fumbling, which leads to more fear. Overthinking. We assume that to sound smart, we need the perfect answer. So we mentally filter, revise, and self-edit in real time. Unfortunately, this slows everything down. The more we try to refine our thought before saying it, the more likely we are to lose the thread. Spontaneous speaking isn't about perfection, it's about clarity and presence. But overthinking hijacks both. Lack of practice. Here's a truth that surprises people. We don't practice spontaneous speaking enough. We rehearse speeches, we draft emails, we write talking points. But how often do we simulate the pressure of being asked a surprise question? Without practice, the mental muscles for quick thinking and verbal agility stay weak. Like any skill, if you don't use it, you lose it. Unclear structure 1. More reason people freeze. They don't have a go-to structure. They might know what they want to say, but they don't know how to organize it quickly. So ideas get stuck at the gate. A solid mental framework, like PrEP or ABC, can act like a runway, helping thoughts take off fast and smooth. Negative self-talk. Lastly, we can't ignore the voice in our heads. The inner critic that says, "You're not good at this," or "You never sound smart." Negative self-talk doesn't just affect confidence, it impacts performance. When your mental dialogue is harsh, your creative brain shuts down. You're not exploring ideas. You're defending against imaginary threats. So, to recap, here's why we struggle. Our brain reacts as if we're in danger, even when we're not. We fear judgment more than we value contribution. We overthink instead of express. We rarely practice unprepared speaking. And we lack structure, which leads to spiraling or freezing. Understanding these challenges is the first step to overcoming them. Once we know what's happening inside our mind, we can work with it, not against it. And here's the key. These are not fixed traits. They're patterns, and patterns can be changed. Section 3. The Science of Thinking Fast. Let's pull back the curtain on what's really happening in your brain when you're speaking spontaneously. Because to master the skill, we have to first understand the science behind it. At the heart of spontaneous speaking is your brain's ability to process and respond in real time. A cognitive juggling act involving memory, attention, emotion, and language. It's complex, yes. But it's also trainable. System 1 versus System 2. Thinking. The most useful framework for understanding this comes from psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who described two systems that govern our thinking. System 1 is fast, intuitive, and automatic. It's what you use when finishing familiar phrases, recognizing faces, or responding instinctively. System 2 is slow, analytical, and effortful. It's used when solving math problems, writing essays, or planning speeches. When you're speaking, on the spot, you rely primarily on System 1, but that's risky if you haven't trained it. Because System 1 isn't perfect. It makes shortcuts, it reacts, it panics under pressure, unless you give it practice. That's why spontaneous speakers often sound either brilliant or clumsy. It depends on how much they've refined their intuitive response system. So how do we strengthen it? 2. The role of working memory. Your working memory is like a mental scratch pad. It holds bits of info in your mind while you process and organize them. The better your working memory, the more coherent your spontaneous thoughts will be. But stress short-circuits working memory. When you're anxious, your brain deprioritizes memory and prioritizes survival. That's why you forget what you were saying mid-sentence or repeat yourself. Improving working memory through games, improvisation, and structured thinking can dramatically boost your ability to think while speaking. Cognitive load and verbal. Fluency, spontaneous speaking is a high-load activity. You're retrieving ideas, forming sentences, reading body language, and managing emotions, all at once. That's a lot of tabs open at the same time. The trick is to reduce the load. How? Use frameworks so you're not inventing structure on the fly. Practice so responses become automatic. Reframe anxiety as excitement, which reduces emotional drag. Verbal fluency improves when your cognitive load is lightened, not when you try harder. The neuroplasticity advantage. Here's some good news. The brain can rewire itself. This concept is called neuroplasticity. The more you engage in fast-thinking tasks, like timed Q&A sessions, improv exercises, or public speaking without notes, the more your brain adapts. Neural pathways for quick thinking get faster and more efficient. You start to trust your instincts. You say more with less fear. Even short daily exercises, like summarizing a news article out loud in 30 seconds, can build those neural highways. The pause as a power tool, one myth that hurts spontaneous speakers. You have to respond instantly. Nope. Some of the most effective spontaneous communicators pause, briefly but intentionally. Pausing gives your brain milliseconds to reset. It allows ideas to surface and emotions to calm. And ironically, it makes you look more composed and confident, not less. Think of it like jazz. The silence between the notes is what gives them power. Automaticity versus authenticity. Another balance to strike is between sounding natural and sounding robotic. You want to develop automaticity, habitual mental responses, but not at the cost of sounding scripted. That's why frameworks like PrEP or ABC work so well. They guide your thinking without dictating your words. They create fluency, not formulas. It's not about memorizing. It's about priming your brain to recognize patterns and respond creatively within them. So, what does the science tell us? Spontaneous speaking is a skill of fast recall and low inhibition. Anxiety and cognitive overload are the biggest saboteurs. The brain can be trained to respond more effectively. Verbal fluency comes from reducing pressure, not increasing it. Pausing is a superpower, not a sign of weakness. Once you understand the brain's mechanics, you stop fighting your instincts and start shaping them. You stop thinking, I'm bad at this, and start thinking, I haven't trained this yet. Section 4. Frameworks to speak smart under pressure. It's one thing to understand why we struggle or how the brain works, but what you need now are tools. Mental models. Simple, repeatable frameworks that allow you to take control in the heat of the moment. In this section, we'll break down the top 3 frameworks that professionals, leaders, and great communicators use to sound clear and compelling on the fly. You won't need to memorize lines. These are plug-and-play structures that train your brain to organize thoughts quickly, even under pressure. Framework number 1. Prep. Point, reason, example, point. This is one of the most trusted and simple methods for impromptu speaking. It works whether you're answering a question in a meeting or giving a last-minute toast. Here's how it goes. Point. State your opinion or idea clearly. Reason. Explain why you believe that. Example. Support it with a relevant story. Or fact. Point. Reiterate your main message. Example. I believe hybrid work should continue. The main reason is it supports both productivity and well-being. For example, our team's project delivery improved by 12% when we shifted to remote first. That's why I think hybrid is not just convenient, it's strategic. Why it works? It's fast, structured, and repeatable. It gives you a natural rhythm and clarity even if you're nervous. Framework number 2. ABC. Acknowledge, bridge, communicate. This one is ideal when you get asked a tough or unexpected question, especially when you don't know the answer yet. Acknowledge, show that you've heard the question. Bridge, find common ground or context. Communicate, deliver your point or redirect thoughtfully. Example. That's a great question. There's still a lot we're learning about that area. But what we do know is that customer behavior has shifted toward faster, digital-first experiences, so the opportunity lies in meeting them there. ABC buys you time, shows emotional intelligence, and allows you to pivot with grace. It's like verbal judo. Framework number 3. Think, feel. Do when you're trying to persuade or inspire, especially in spontaneous moments, this framework works wonders. Ask yourself, what should they think? What should they feel? What should they do? Use it to quickly sketch out your message with depth and emotion. Example. I want you to think of this not as a setback, but a setup for something better. I want you to feel encouraged, not defeated. And I want you to take one small step today, even if it's messy. This framework infuses purpose and emotion into your message, instantly making it more memorable. Why frameworks? Work frameworks reduce cognitive load. Instead of wondering how to start or where to go next, your brain runs the playbook. This frees up energy for confidence, presence, and clarity. They also boost verbal fluency. With practice, you won't just sound better, you'll feel better doing it. More quick tools to keep handy here are a few bonus techniques to layer on top. Chunking break complex ideas into 3 parts. The rule of 3s makes your message easier to follow. Here's what we know, what we don't, and what we're doing next. Pause, then speak. Don't rush to respond. A brief pause creates space for your brain and your audience to catch up. Confidence often sounds like calm. Repeat the question out loud. When asked something unexpected, repeating it gives you time and ensures you understand it correctly. That's a really interesting point. How can we create more trust in remote teams? 4. Default to a story. If you're stuck, share a brief story. Narratives are easier to recall and more engaging than abstract ideas. Framework in action. Real-life example, imagine this. You're in a panel discussion. Someone asks, "What's your advice for managing burnout?" Most people would panic, mumble, or ramble. But here's how it looks using think, feel, do. Think. Burnout isn't just about overwork. It's about lack of control and meaning. Feel. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, and I've been there. Do. Start by reclaiming small boundaries, like turning off notifications at 6 p.m. It adds up. You've just dropped a strong, human, and useful answer in under 30 seconds. What to do when you're totally blank even with frameworks? Sometimes your mind just stops. Here's what to do in that moment. Name the pause. Let me gather my thoughts. This resets the tension. Zoom out. If we look at the bigger picture, helps shift the lens. Ask back. Can you clarify what part you're most curious about? This gives you breathing room. Final word on frameworks. Spontaneous speaking isn't about being clever. It's about being prepared to be clear. Frameworks give you that clarity. They turn pressure into performance. And with just a little practice, they become second nature. Section 5. Practicing spontaneity. It might sound strange at first. How do you practice being spontaneous? Isn't spontaneity, by definition, unplanned? Yes and no. You can't script every word, but you can train your brain to respond under pressure with flexibility, clarity, and confidence. This section is about turning insight into action, building the muscle of thinking fast and speaking smart through real-world, low-stakes practice. Let's get into it. Why practice? Work spontaneous speaking is a skill. And like any skill, public speaking, writing, or even sports, it improves with intentional, consistent repetition. The more you simulate pressure in a controlled setting, the less reactive your brain becomes in real ones. You create mental grooves that your mind can fall into when the heat is on. 1. Improv techniques for everyday practice. You don't need to join a comedy troupe to learn from improvisation. Improv is one of the most powerful tools for spontaneous speaking. Try this classic exercise. Yes, and. With a partner or solo, respond to any statement by starting with yes, and. This forces your brain to accept an idea, build on it, and keep going. It trains mental agility, listening, and confidence. Example. Partner. We should build a rocket made of marshmallows. You. Yes, and it could be powered by solar candy panels. Silly? Yes. Powerful? Also, yes. You're learning to stay present and let go of judgment, a core skill in thinking fast. 2. Topic toss pick. A random topic, e.g., ice cream, recycling, team meetings, and give yourself 30 seconds to speak about it out loud using a framework like prep or think, feel, do. Record yourself. Don't worry about perfection. Focus on clarity, structure, flow. Do this daily, and you'll see dramatic improvement in just 2 weeks. 3. Lightning Q&A ask. A friend to throw random questions at you with no prep. Examples. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? How would you improve public transportation? Why are waffles better than pancakes? Try to respond using the prep framework. This forces you to organize your answer on the fly while staying calm and composed. Bonus. Do this in front of a mirror or a phone camera for extra realism. 4. Mental rehearsal. Close your eyes and visualize spontaneous speaking moments. Being called on in a meeting, answering a tough interview question, getting up at a dinner to say a few words. Walk through what you'd say. Breathe. Imagine staying grounded and responding with confidence. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between mental and physical practice. This visualization creates real improvement. 5. Intentional mistake. Reframing practice saying something wrong and recovering. This builds one of the most underrated communication strengths, resilience. Try this. Deliver a short talk and intentionally mess up a sentence. Then, without apologizing, rephrase it smoothly. This teaches you how to bounce back without panic. That small mistakes don't derail your message, that perfection isn't required to sound smart. Building a daily routine. Here's a sample. 10-minute daily practice. Pick a topic and speak for 60 seconds using prep. Play yes and for 3 minutes with a friend or solo prompts. Do a lightning Q&A for 5 random questions. Reflect on what went well and what you'd improve. If you do this 5 days a week, your spontaneous speaking ability will grow faster than any course or book could promise. Make it safe to struggle. To build this skill, you need a safe space to fail. Low-stakes environments where you can stumble, regroup, and improve. Try practicing with friends or coworkers you trust, starting in casual settings before high-pressure ones, reminding yourself, this is practice. I'm not supposed to be perfect. Growth thrives in safety, and safety is something you can create through mindset and environment. Real-world drill. The elevator pitch challenge. Imagine someone asks you, "So, what do you do?" Instead of freezing or fumbling, use this structure. Think, what do I want them to understand about me? Feel, what emotion do I want to leave them with? Do, what action or impression do I want them to take? Now rehearse it, 3 different ways. Each under 30 seconds. You're not just practicing your pitch. You're training your spontaneous speaking reflex. Remember, practice is power. The people you admire who sound natural and quick-witted, they've practiced. A lot. They've put in the reps when no one was watching. They've stumbled, self-corrected, and learned. And so can you. Spontaneous speaking isn't about genius. It's about intentional repetition. About building a toolkit so strong, you can forget about it when the moment comes, and trust yourself to rise. Section 6. Real-world applications and examples. So far, we've explored why spontaneous speaking is hard, how the brain processes it, and the tools to get better. Now let's bring all of it to life with real-world scenarios. These examples aren't theoretical. They're common moments where thinking fast and speaking smart truly matters. 1. The job interview. Curveball scenario. You're interviewing for your dream role. Things are going well. Then they ask, "Tell me about a time you failed and what you learned." Freeze moment, right? But using prep or think, feel, do, you have a roadmap. Here's how a strong answer could sound. Point. One major failure taught me more than any success ever could. Reason. I launched a project without fully aligning the stakeholders. Example. Within 2 weeks, it stalled. I learned to over-communicate early, and today, alignment is one of my strengths. Point. So yes, I failed. But I also grew, and I now lead with clarity. The difference? Structure turned a vulnerable moment into a strong story. 2. Team meeting check-in scenario. Your manager asks, "What's the status of your project?" In front of the team. You weren't expecting to present, but you don't need a presentation. Use chunking. 3 quick things. First, the deliverables are on track. Second, we hit a small delay with vendor approval. Third, We're mitigating it by overlapping QA with Dev this week. You just earned credibility by being concise, clear, and confident, without notes. 3. Public speaking, the unplanned close scenario. You've just finished your panel talk. The host says, "Want to give some final thoughts?" You didn't. Prepare an ending. Try this mini think, feel, do. I'd like to leave you with one idea. Communication isn't about being perfect. It's about being clear. I hope you feel inspired to try, even when you're unsure. And if you do, you'll get better, faster than you think. Boom. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. 4. Networking conversations, scenario. You're at a networking event and someone asks, "What do you do?" Instead of launching into a long explanation, frame it. I help teams communicate better, especially under pressure, so their ideas land, not just exist. I love turning confusion into clarity, short, unexpected, memorable. That's how you stand out. 5. Client presentation Q&A scenario. You finish a pitch. A client throws a question that challenges your proposal. Rather than defend immediately, use ABC. Acknowledge. That's a fair concern. Bridge. We've actually seen that come up in similar rollouts. Communicate. One way we mitigate it is through phased adoption with close feedback loops. You didn't dodge. You led with empathy and pivoted to solution. 6. The unexpected toast scenario. Someone hands you the mic at a dinner or farewell. Say a few words. Don't panic. Use prep quickly. Point. This moment means a lot. Reason. We don't always pause to appreciate progress. Example. I've watched this team grow from 3 people to a powerhouse, and every one of you played a part. Point. So tonight, let's celebrate not just what we did, but who we did it with. That's 20 seconds of impact built on a structure that never fails. 7. Handling pushback in conversation scenario. You suggest something in a meeting. Someone challenges you, publicly. Instead of getting flustered or defensive, try, pause. Interesting take. Can you say more about what concerns you most? Listen. Thanks for that. I see the tension, and here's one way we could balance both angles. Calm, composed, and collaborative. That's how smart speakers hold ground and invite dialogue. Real talk. What these examples prove: you don't need to be naturally gifted to think fast. You need to be trained, intentional, ready with a few mental tools you trust. These examples show that spontaneity isn't chaos, it's clarity, under speed. And when you prepare for common moments, you can respond with calm and confidence. We've covered a lot. But before we wrap up, let's zoom out and remind ourselves what this is really about. Spontaneous speaking isn't about being clever or sounding perfect. It's about being clear under pressure. It's about showing up, even when you're caught off guard, and still delivering with confidence and purpose. You've learned why we freeze when put on the spot. The neuroscience behind quick thinking. You now have proven frameworks like PREP, ABC, and Think, Feel, Do to guide you through tough moments. And you've discovered ways to practice spontaneity so that your brain is ready when it matters most. Here's the big takeaway. You don't have to be born quick-witted to speak smart. You just have to practice the right way consistently. You can build fluency. You can handle curveballs. You can trust your brain, because now you've trained it to perform. So next time you're put on the spot, don't panic. Pause. Use a framework, breathe, and respond. Because the world doesn't need perfect communicators, it needs present ones. If you found value in this episode, share it with someone who could use a boost in confidence. And if you're ready to keep growing, subscribe to Think Fast, Speak Smart, and hit the like button. It helps more people discover tools that make real impact. Until next time, keep practicing, keep showing up, and remember, you've got this.